When it comes to HMOs, they can be super profitable, and many people are excited and attracted to HMOs simply because of the amount of money they make. You've got a single property with multiple rents being generated from that particular property. But also, the thing that many people tend to forget is you've got quite significant operational costs depending on what type of HMO it is and how you have it set up. In this video, I want to break down the 13 different operational costs that you need to be aware of if you're running HMOs. Hey, if you're watching this video for the first time, my name is Saj Hussain, and on this channel I use my 19 years of property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing journey. Now, I've been involved in HMOs for about 15 years now. That was the very first HMO I set up at that time, probably close to about 16 years. And it was a house where we had 6 people sharing that particular house. Now, during then, we've kind of evolved in many different types of HMOs that we've done, but primarily our core sector has been what we call professional tenants or blue-collar tenants. What we classify as professional tenants generally tend to be somebody that goes to work at a desk, maybe they're a graduate. They'll tend to be probably on a higher salary than the average. And so we try and create accommodation for them that's really nice and desirable and probably at the premium end of the market. Then we have a tier down slightly from that, which is where we've got people that are working in ordinary jobs. It could be, for example, a driver, working in retail, working in a warehouse, and income might be more modest, but we're still providing good quality accommodation for them at a more affordable rate. So a peg down from our best quality accommodation. But then also we have the other end of the spectrum where we have people that are in aspects of social housing where they might have some kind of support also be provided to them as well. And generally that's government funded rent. And the type of accommodation might be more basic we're providing there, might be a more lower cost in terms of the provisions that we put into place. But the operating cost will also vary that we need to take into consideration. And although these are the 3 sectors that we work in, there's also many types of HMOs as well. So for example, it could be student lets, it could be asylum seekers, and many other types as well. When you're thinking about the operational costs, the best starting point is to try and understand who your customer is or who you're creating this product for, who's going to be the occupants in that property, what the expectations that they have, and then think about what's going to be your operational costs in running that type of HMO. So in our HMO business, there are 13 different operational costs that we take into consideration. And the first one is gas. Now, so for many people, this can be a little bit of a thorn in their side as HMO landlords because this can be such a variable cost. So we'll have variable costs and fixed costs. Now, it's a variable cost because the amount of gas used will change throughout the year and throughout the months as well. So for example, in the winter, it tends to be high. In the summer, it might be a little bit lower. But of course, recently, over the last few years, we've had utility prices rise quite significantly as well. So those prices have increased quite a bit. And now, depending on the type of heating system you operate in the property, in my personal experience, it's better to put a modern, efficient heating system in, rather than trying to run an old, tired system to try and save money by not replacing it, because the inefficient system will burn more gas. So the other thing that we tend to do is have systems in place like either Tado or Inspire, and what they tend to do is help us monitor the usage of the gas in the particular property as well. So in our HMOs, the tenants are paying all-inclusive, all these things are included for them. But sometimes it might be that you've got a student let. In a student let, what you find is that the tenants might be paying those bills themselves. The next one is electricity, which is very similar to gas in that it's a variable cost. And just like with gas, it will vary throughout the year as well. So in winter, when the days are shorter, the lights are on for longer, so the bills are often higher. And the summer, it tends to be a lower electricity bill. Now, it is possible to fix some of these bills where you have a direct debit in place, where you're estimating it. Personally, we prefer to actually pay for the usage so we know what the usage is. The other thing we tend to do with variable costs is to take regular readings. So when we're doing our monthly inspections, we always take meter readings of gas, electric as well, so we know where we are with those. And so there's no nasty surprises. If there's an issue, we can attend to those. So although in our tenancy contracts, they are fully inclusive of gas and electric usage, we have a fair usage policy. So if there's an abuse of it, for example, the heating's on full blast and the windows are open, what we will do is charge the tenants for that amount. And what that does, it tends to just focus their attention on not waste and abuse the fully inclusive package. Before we get on to the next item, if you want to be surrounded by like-minded people on the same mission as you, then you should definitely come to our monthly Impact Network event. The Impact Network is a monthly event that we hold at our Birmingham office.
Brilliant event.
Mind-blowing.
Absolutely awesome.
Really knowledgeable. Glad I came. It's been great.
Loved every minute.
The idea being to help accelerate growth for property and business entrepreneurs. We got like-minded people together to learn and network from each other, and also some fantastic speakers. For example, we've had sessions today on scaling and growing your business, having the right teams around you, how to create a passive house in terms of investment, and also using AI to create content. This is not AI, this is a real me. I look forward to seeing you at the next event. The next one is water, and then depending on whether you've got a water meter or you just build on a fixed amount, if it's a water meter, then it'll vary just like your gas and electric as well. And just like with the other meter readings, we tend to keep a close eye on the amount of water we're using as well. And these bills might be paid quarterly, or sometimes they're paid monthly as well. The next one then is council tax. Council tax, again, will depend on the banding for your particular property. Sometimes we've got properties where we've had big renovations done on them, but they haven't necessarily been rebanded, so there might still be a lower band. Other times they might be quite high in terms of what band it is. Now, some of these bills are paid over 10 months and sometimes they're paid over 12 months. It just depends on the local authority that we're working with and what arrangements they have. But these are all fixed costs, meaning that regardless of the number of people in the property, whether it's 4 people, 6 people, 8 people, that cost is fixed, and then we just portion it as when we're doing our costings. Next one then is a TV license, and although we may not necessarily have a TV in the communal area, we still provide a TV license. So there's a TV license within that property, and it just avoids problems with constant letters or TV detector van turning up. Do they still have those TV detector vans? Well, you can still have somebody chasing you up that you don't have a TV license for a property. So we always have a TV license in place for the property. We also let the tenants know if they've got their own TV in their room that they should also have their own TV license as well, especially if there's a lock on that door, because that's how that tends to be done. But generally speaking, we'll put TVs in the communal areas and also in the bedrooms as well for our tenants. The next is internet, and as far as the tenant's concerned, that probably should be number one, because the quality of the internet is probably the most important thing for many of our tenants these days, because so much are dependent on the quality of the internet connection, maybe for work, but sometimes just because the phone is attached to their hand and they can't let go and separate it. What we tend to do in our houses is put the fastest possible connection we can put into that particular property, generally a fibre optic connection, and then we have a system to be able to distribute the signal throughout the building and to boost that signal as well, so rather than the router just, for example, sitting under the stairs and the signal doesn't spread throughout the house. So that way everybody's got the internet connection. And then also in some of our houses, when we're doing a full renovation, we also put cabled internet throughout the building as well. So if someone's got a VoIP phone or a PlayStation maybe they want to use, so they've got fast internet connection there. Again, these are fixed costs that can get distributed throughout all the people in the house. So the first 6 were utilities. The next one is cleaners, and we have cleaners going to our properties regularly, generally at least once a week, where they are going in and clean the communal areas. They don't go into the individual bedroom, but they'll clean all the communal areas. Now, depending again on the type of HMO you have and the type of tenants that you have in those properties, all of these costs I'm talking about might vary, and how much you spend on them, or whether you even use some of these things. As I mentioned earlier, if you're students often will pay their bills. They won't necessarily have to pay council tax on a property as long as they're all students in the house. So take what I'm saying into consideration when you're thinking about the type of property as well. But with cleaners, we send them in on a weekly basis, generally 1 to 2 hours, depending on the size of the house they're doing and how many bathrooms. But many of our newer houses are all ensuite bathrooms, so there's no communal bathroom as such for them to clean. So it tends to be the lounge, living room areas and hallways that they will clean. And they will also have a cleaning rota in terms of, for example, there might be vacuuming, mopping, but maybe once a month they are dusting and wiping down, skirting and light fittings and things like that as well. Next is gardeners. Whether you've got beautifully landscaped gardens or you've got just everything slabbed over and tarmacked, you'll still need somebody to be able to keep an eye on the externals on the buildings, or whether it's just de-weeding it, or whether it's just kind of cutting the lawn regularly. And again, throughout the year, this will vary how much we're spending on this. In the summer months, it tends to be more. In the winter, we're doing very little. Generally, at the beginning of the season, so for example, in spring, there's probably a lot of cleaning up that needs to be done first of all. So the first cut or first clean can be quite significant. As we get into winter, often a lot of the leaves, if you've got a lot of trees nearby as well, there tends to be a higher cost in cleaning up there, as well as the routine of kind of a de-weeding and cutting grass as well. The next one is maintenance. Now, maintenance isn't necessarily a fixed cost that we incur every month, but what we do, we allocate a little bit of money each month into a maintenance fund, and essentially whatever works need doing throughout the year in the property, we get those done. And we're very proactive in our property. As soon as there's a sign of something that needs doing, we try and get it dealt with straight away. Is what they do with minor repairs, they tend to avoid them or don't get them done. And what happens over time is that repair can get significantly worse. For example, like a leak, it might be, it's got a little stain right now, but you're not resolving the problem, and eventually that ceiling will collapse and it'll end up costing you a significant amount more. So we allocate a bit of money into this fund so that there's always a pot of cash to be proactively maintaining the properties. If you'd like to learn more about how to do this exactly and efficiently and to make it super profitable, then you need to come along to our next Property Breakthrough Intensive. Imagine walking away with absolute clarity on your property journey. 3 days of immersive, practical and fun learning, Join us for the next Property Breakthrough Intensive. So when we are doing BRR, the idea is we increasing the value of the property. So what I call forced appreciation, we're forcing up the value of the property. What you're doing is natural appreciation, meaning time will increase the value. This is why getting this right is important. Now, as I explained, most people get it wrong. They like the idea, but they get the process wrong and they don't get the end result. The next one then is voids. Now, voids isn't a cost, but it does affect your cash flow. This is when there isn't an occupant in that particular property or in a particular room, and you don't have a rent coming in from that property. So for example, if a tenant moves out at the end of the month and then it's a week before the next tenant moves in, that's essentially a week's rent you've lost when you've got, say, 6 people in a shared house and they come and go at different times throughout the year. When you look at the overall occupancy, what you'll find, it does impact your cash flow. And one of the ways we tend to minimize this, as soon as the tenant gives notice, we start marketing their room to be available. Now, for example, this works on working professionals and those in blue collar type properties, but if you're students, it would be a little bit different, for example, because that tends to be more seasonal. The next one then is management. You'll have somebody managing your property. Maybe you're doing this yourself, but generally, as you try to build this as a business, you'll have somebody managing property, and we manage literally hundreds of rooms across Birmingham and the surrounding areas as well. And so we have teams in place to manage those, and there's a cost. Even if they're our own properties, we still factor in a cost to be able to manage those properties. And if you're using a letting agent to do this, especially if it's a specialist, then you'll probably find you'll pay a higher figure than normal market rates for rentals, because it comes with a certain level of skill and experience to be able to run these properties well and efficiently. Again, it depends on where you are in the country and what type of tenant group you have, but it's certainly a cost you need to factor in as well. The next one is insurance, and insurance can be a big one because there's lots of different types of insurances that you might have in place. For example, you might have buildings insurance on the property, but you might also have contents insurance within the property as well. You could be that you are having insurance policies put into place for each tenant that you come in, for example, protecting you against tenant arrears or non-payment as well. So many different insurances, and depending on which ones you have, they'll also add to your monthly operational costs. Before I do the next and last one, I'm going to give you a little bonus for staying so far watching the video. So the next one is certificates, and there can be many different types of certificates that you need in order to stay compliant. For example, you could have gas certificate, which are done annually, the electrical certificate, which is done every 5 years. You've got PAT testing, which will be done annually, fire alarm testing system, you could have a Legionellas report, you have EPC, which lasts for 10 years, and various other certificates as well as the HMO licenses as well. So all of these will come up at different times. Some of them might be every year, some things you might do every 6 months, sometimes some things are only every 10 years, but all of these are costs that we need to factor in as well. The final one is equipment replacement. Now what that means is sometimes we'll have wear and tear on our equipment that we had in the property when we have it all set up at the beginning. It looks brand spanking new, everything is shiny and amazing. However, over time these things will start needing replacement, especially when you've got lots of use of the equipment in those properties, when you've got, say, 5, 6, 7 people living in the same house. So there needs to be an allocation of money to be able to replace these, whether it's a washing machine, whether it's a microwave or any other appliance, or sometimes things get broken as well. So having a fund for these things in place. I said at the beginning, one of the things that people are fascinated about HMOs is because the income they can generate. The other thing with HMOs also is because they're operating in a certain way, sometimes you can get a much higher value for that property and use a technique called a commercial valuation to be able to extract a lot more when you're financing the property. If you want to learn more about that, watch this video next week. I've got lined up for you here, and we shall see you on that video.